You have been working on this for 3 weeks, not finishing it, working on it. There is a difference, and somewhere inside you, you already know that. The feature itself would take 2 days. You know this. You knew it on day one. But the architecture needed to be right first. The naming needed to be right first. The folder structure needed to be right first. So you researched, you compared. You read 4 blog posts about the correct way to structure a project like this one. You opened 7 tabs about state management. You closed them. You opened 7 more. Why does getting it right always come before getting it done? Why does the version in your head stay perfect only as long as it stays unbuilt? You call this optimizing. But optimizing has an endpoint. This does not. Here is what is actually happening. Somewhere underneath the architecture decisions, there is a question you do not want to answer. The question is simple. Is this good enough? Is what I make good enough? Are you good enough? As long as the thing is not finished, the question cannot be asked. There is nothing to judge yet. There is only potential, and potential is safe. Potential has never been criticized in a code review. Potential has never been merged, deployed, and watched in production by people who might find it wanting. So you keep the thing in its safest possible state, unfinished. You do not call it fear, you call it diligence. This is the trick avoidance plays on people who think for a living. It does not look like avoidance. It looks like rigor. It wears the same clothes as care. A person who is afraid to start a hard conversation avoids the room. A person who is afraid to finish a hard piece of work refactors the room instead. Think about the comment still sitting in that old function. TODO, refactor this properly. Someone wrote it 2 years ago. Nobody has touched it since. Not because nobody noticed, but because touching it means deciding it is finished. And deciding it is finished means it can be wrong in front of other people. It is easier to leave a TODO forever than to close it and be judged for the answer. You tell yourself you are protecting the code base from your own bad decisions. You are actually protecting yourself from the moment where your decision becomes visible. Think about the tool you are still evaluating. 3 different frameworks, 3 different databases, 3 different libraries that all do roughly the same thing. You have read the documentation for all of them. You have built tiny prototypes in all of them. You have not chosen, because choosing means you're now responsible for what happens after. If you never pick, you can never pick wrong. This is what optimizing becomes when it stops serving the work and starts serving the fear underneath it. It stops being a tool, it becomes a hiding place with very good lighting. Where did this pattern come from? It came from somewhere reasonable. Early in your career, getting something wrong was expensive. A bad decision shipped to production at 2 in the morning. The pager went off, you sat awake, watching a dashboard, learning in your body what it feels like when a choice you made becomes a fire that other people have to help you put out. That lesson did not stay in the code base. It moved into you. Now, the smallest decision can trigger the same nervous system response as that night. Choosing a button color and choosing a database schema start to feel like the same kind of danger, even though only one of them can actually hurt anyone. Engineering teaches you to think several steps ahead, to anticipate failure modes before they happen, to ask, what if this breaks? What if this does not scale? What if this was the wrong call? That instinct keeps systems alive. It also, left unchecked, starts asking the same questions about you. What if this was the wrong call? What if this is not good enough? What if shipping this reveals something you would rather not reveal? The system that was built to predict failure in software quietly turns its attention inward and begins predicting failure in you. Look at how this gets celebrated, not punished. The engineer who spends 6 weeks rewriting the same module gets called a perfectionist, and the word is said with something close to admiration. The one who ships in 2 days and accepts the rough edges gets called sloppy. Nobody in the stand-up asks why a 2-day task took 6 weeks. Everyone assumes it is because the work demanded it. Sometimes the work does demand it. But sometimes the work was finished in week 1, and the next 5 weeks were spent circling it, polishing corners nobody will ever see. Because finishing meant opening yourself up to a verdict you were not ready to receive. The culture rewards this. Thoroughness is a virtue here. Caution is a virtue here. So the fear gets to wear a badge instead of a name. It gets promoted instead of treated. What does staying like this actually cost you? It costs you the years you keep almost building things. It costs you the side project that has been 70% done for over a year. The one where the core idea works, where people who saw the early version asked when they could try it, and where you told them soon and meant it, and have kept meaning it since. It costs you the promotion that required showing finished, owned, shipped work, not just elegant, unfinished work, because nobody can evaluate a thing that lives permanently in draft. It costs you something quieter, too. A version of yourself that you have never let anyone see complete. Because as long as everything stays in progress, nobody can tell you it was not enough. But nobody can tell you it was either. You trade the possibility of being told you failed for the certainty of never finding out you might have succeeded. That is not optimizing. That is a hiding place dressed up as a strategy. Here's the part most people miss. The fear does not go away when the project finally ships. It just stops having anywhere to hide. You will feel it the moment you finally merge the thing you have been circling for months. A small drop in your stomach. Not relief, not yet. Something closer to standing in an open room after years behind a door. And here is what almost nobody warns you about that moment. It is survivable. The verdict you were avoiding rarely arrives the way you rehearsed it. Most of the time, nobody says anything at all. The world simply continues, and you're still standing in it, having finished something. The architecture you were so afraid to lock in turns out to be adjustable later. The decision you were so afraid to make turns out to be reversible. The thing you thought needed to be perfect before anyone saw it turns out to only need to exist. What you were actually protecting was never the codebase. It was the unfinished version of you that nobody had judged yet. The next time you find yourself reorganizing something that already works, refactoring a function for the fourth time, opening one more tab to compare one more tool, stop for a moment and ask the real question. Is this the project that needs more time? Or is this you, still standing at the door, calling it optimizing because the other word is harder to say? You have been working on this for 3 weeks. Maybe it is finally time to call it finished and see what happens when somebody else gets to decide if it was good enough, instead of you deciding it never gets the chance.